Yeah, I would think every debate does need balance, or else the debate's just it's not gonna really be a debate. It's just gonna be a one-sided opinion constantly hitting off a wall, probably. What are your opinions on it? I mean, I don't think the BBC is very balanced, but when it comes to their debates, I think they have a history of putting more candidates in favour or against other people. So
I think there's definitely balance in like almost every debate, especially I think in international news. Just like I really notice it because I listen to news from here and I listen to news from abroad, and like I can just see both sides like really don't like each other, and it's like really biased both ways. So definitely.
What did you guys think about the guy that had been on Question Time from Motherwell? He was like a UKIP supporter and had been on 4 times. Like, did you see that guy asking the question?
I didn't see that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was a guy. I don't know.
4 times
he'd been on 4 times. Same guy from Motherwell. Like,
maybe it's because his view is not very common, so they can't find other people who
but is that then fair?
What was he saying?
I actually don't know.
I think it would be fair because, and the reason I'd say it's fair is, one, he's not a panel member, so, and it's normally the panel members that they say, right, we need to be balanced and fair. And yes, the audience, I'm pretty sure they do something where it's half remain and half leave.
When it comes to politics and debate, it's all bullshit, it's all smoke and mirrors. Like, I can't date anymore, I've not watched a telly.
Yeah, me neither.
And this is shit, like, because I make movies for telly, but like, I can't engage with TV anymore. It's so divisive, it's so polarised. Social media is an even worse version of it, but at the moment, everybody's just shouting.
But the thing about TV and newspaper is that they're actually dying things, like they're dying arts practices.
They're so outdated.
So what's happening is that everyone is just really trying to get that like sound bite, that like clip that they can put on the internet that then goes viral, and what you're going to get from that is getting seriously opposing views
it's
online.
Like more extreme than before.
Yeah, exactly.
Just to get attention, basically.
Yeah, so everything I feel like, as you're saying, everything I feel is like they just like pitting people against each other because they know it's going to be like reality TV. Like see, if you sometimes you turn on like a debate or whatever, it looks like you're watching like Jersey Shore. Like it's like absolutely madness. And actually, see, if we have a conversation with people with opposing views, we don't speak like that to each other. Like they're getting people riled up in some way and then like pitting them against each other. And also, but then that makes us feel like if you live in your bubble, like your echo chamber where you don't talk to people that have opposing views from you, you see this kind of like silhouette of them on the TV or this archetype of this enemy. So then actually there's no empathy for either side because you're like, oh, well, I saw that UKIP supporter and he's a wank, so they all must be wanks. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So it's like there's no, you just see like one version of them rather than if you go into your community and talk to people that have these views, you're like, oh, I 100% know why you have that view.
I kind of feel like I'm a guy, and I just didn't feel like I have the right to tell a woman what to do with her body, period. So if she's got my baby in her body, I can offer 2 things. If we keep it, we'll run with it and we'll do what we can to build it. But it's your body, so if you didn't want to have the bairn, then I can't do nothing about it, and that's my opinion. It's got nothing to do with me what happens with abortion.
But would you not say that
it's not my right. It's not my body. It's not my right. The churches.
Would you not say that it's not the woman's body either, though, because it's a child's body?
To be honest,
which is inside her body, but it is a child that's developing.
I think it's quite complicated. Like for me, I've got really like strong opinions on abortion, but like kind of opposing opinions. As like, as a woman, I want total control over my body, and like if I were to be pregnant now, I wouldn't be ready for a baby, and I wouldn't want that. So like, in that sense, I would want an abortion, but at the same time, I feel like there is a point where it's not just a fetus, it is a child, and just because it's dependent on the mother, it doesn't mean it's not conscious, and it doesn't mean it doesn't feel pain. And the reason I feel like that is because in my day-to-day life, I am so dependent on someone else doing stuff for me. And obviously, like, yes, I'm an adult, I'm 25, I can speak for myself, I've got my own opinions, and obviously that's really different from a fetus, but it's that dependency doesn't necessarily mean it's not alive, but it's just for me, I don't really know where that cut-off point is.
So do you have any idea of what you think is the reasonable cut-off?
I think I looked it up, so there's, is it 6 weeks or something? It can feel pain. There's a certain point where if, you know, the abortion was to happen, it can feel pain. I think definitely at that point, if it was a situation where, you know, that child was a definite danger to the mother, then yeah, it's not, you know, you kind of have to pick.
You know, I've seen lassies 15, 16 get pregnant and guys managing to get them to get abortions because it's not the right thing to do. It seems like men have it's a higher, it's like our opinion should mean, when we're even just talking about balance there, eventually it comes down to the way that our society is, and at the moment the way we treat females is absolutely disgusting in terms of the way they're represented, in terms of the way, etc., right? So you're like, where did the men get the right? I get what you're saying. It could be a baby. It could feel this and it could feel that. And if it was born right now, it could probably survive. And But I just still feel the morality is very complex, and men seem to force opinions on females. And I just think I've got 3 daughters, and I don't think any man in this world has the right to tell them what to do with their body.
I think you're absolutely right on that, but I just feel it is a lot more complex than. It's not just, like, I honestly think that, you know, if it got to the stage where that fetus was then a fetus child, and, you know, even if the woman, like, had the baby and didn't want it, I feel like as a society we should be civilised to the point where that child could then be given to another family if they wanted it, or, you know, like something like
but
that.
But it'll end up in care.
I think that
Other society's fucked up.
I think there's a moral argument here, but I was brought up in care until I was 4 years old. My birth mother at the time had me when she was a really young girl, and she could have aborted me. And I've seen another argument like that. It was a man with Down syndrome who was addressing Congress in America. And he says, my mother could have aborted me if she wanted to because I have Down syndrome, but she never. And thank God she never, because I'm thriving and I love my life and I would never want another kid to not go through that.
But subsequently, I can roll about, like, like I get that, exactly what you're saying, but you can provide more evidence to people who have had absolutely really restrictive and things because it's went another way, so there's a counter to that. I don't think that the question is so difficult or be part of where the answer is. I think society has to change to the point that you go, why do females feel the need to abort as well?
Well, there's less abortions than, I think we're at an all-time low for abortions.
It's 1 in 3 women. I think I should probably say at this moment that I have had an abortion, and quite in a public abortion as well, because I wrote a poem about it and it went viral in America and I got pretty badly trolled for a while. But I have quite a complex relationship to it because when I had the abortion, it felt like the right thing to do, felt like I didn't have another option. But actually, I think I underestimated the trauma, the physical pain, the emotional pain, the spiritual pain. And I know a lot of women can have it and it is a medical procedure, but for me, it didn't feel like that. It felt like I really had to grieve. And actually, that made me think that 100% women should always have the choice whether to have an abortion or not. But there has to be more education, more sex education in schools. Why? But like, sorry, can I just keep going? And actually, the reason that women are having abortions is because they're just miseducated. Like,
it's
we just
been
don't
used
know.
as a contraceptive, though.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you're right about that. And I think that the way for us not to do that is to actually have proper sex education. See, if I had been shown in school what an abortion was and what I had to go through, and kind of had a real look at the pain of that, what that was, I don't think I would have ever got myself in that situation.
Yeah.
But because I didn't have a clue, I was like, you know, it'll happen.
There's absolutely no idea.
You have no
Especially,
idea what's going to happen.
I went from being in a Catholic high school to being in a non-denominational high school. And even like the difference in sex education, like moving from a religious school to a non-religious school was huge, but even then it was still really poor sex education.
Yeah, I went to a Catholic primary school and I got told that the angel Gabriel came down and planted a seed in the mum's baby.
That's what it's called. That's what I say that we got on your lip is because Gabriel went shh.
But I mean, these are all fables and fairy tales, right? People have ways of telling kids things, like they say the birds and the bees, that sort of stuff. But
if I'd
again,
had proper sex education, I feel like I wouldn't have got myself in that position.
it's worrying that you never actually.
But also the other thing, sorry,
That's right.
one more thing. I will shut up after. The other thing that I was thinking about is it wasn't just sex education. It was feeling like I wanted to be everything I had to be for a man, and actually that meant like if he didn't want to use a Johnny, then that was fine. And actually that starts to talk about what gender, like the idea that he got to decide that. Do you know, I didn't have ownership in that moment, and like a lot of young girls probably feel like they don't have that ownership in that moment either.
Yeah.
And actually, what is it about to make it like that, you know, women can have ownership over being like, no, you have to wear a condom, and you have, like, do you know what I mean, and all that kind of, and that's, I think we all would love there to be less abortions. Do you know what I mean? And actually, like, that is a way that could happen, you know?
I think that what you say is pretty much nailing the head. There's a difference between more legislation around abortion and the way we've used abortion as a contraception method, right? But also as well, I remember I watched this documentary on another channel, and they had a Scandinavian teacher come across to, I think she was Dutch, she was a Dutch teacher, she came across to England to teach, and an English teacher went across there. So the Dutch males, for instance, were learning about a clitoris and learning about the inner workings of women's private parts and stuff like that. We just didn't get taught that.
No,
Like, I did not learn sex
Yeah.
education. I've got 4 kids. I did not learn sex education at school.
But the thing is we had sex education, but our teacher
It
was
was just
so
rubbish.
useless that,
Right,
like,
right.
it didn't. He put on a video, and it was just like no information.
I'll give you an example at the moment. Two youth workers that I know do sex education in an impoverished area. What the wee laddies and the lassies experience for these 2 people is that probably the only sex education that they get. Now, abortions might be on the decrease, but teenage pregnancies comparative to the rest of Europe is still massive in this country. So we do have a lack of education, statistics that say high teenage pregnancies. So you know what I mean, the abortion argument comes into that, but you go better and more meaningful education around a woman's body parts, around a guy's body parts, such as the
Positive
process.
sex as
I've seen
well.
lassies go for abortions, right, and not even abort it in the hospital. There's a pill to go home with.
Yeah.
And then I've seen that. I've seen that with
No,
my eyes.
No.
I've seen that with my eyes. Like, I will not
believe
have,
me,
I've seen it with my
But-
eyes with my partner. I've
Can
seen
I
it.
ask you, was it the morning after pill or was it an abortion?
It was an
It was the pill that she takes, so it flushes out here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
whatever that is, whatever means, if that's a contraceptive pill, if that's an abortion pill, I seen a lassie go up to the hospital, and the people
can
in there
do it.
treated her like she was a piece of shit.
That's
She
shit.
comes home,
Yeah.
she aborts in the house.
That's-
There's no medical
that
professional.
can't
There's no
be-
but that's the
It's
truth.
a-
That's
see, I think
terrible.
they're
That's
doing
what
that.
happens.
They are
That's what I
doing
seen
that
with my
to,
eyes.
cut like money and services.
Look, there's certain types of lassies, when it comes to the NHS or anything like that, they are just, I wouldn't even call them marginalised, they're so far out, you know what I mean, that they're just victims. So that's kind of what I see lassies going through. So it's
Victims of the
it's why I
system that's
feel like I
forgotten
don't have
about
an
them.
opinion on abortion like that. Do you know what I mean? It's no me.
It's
What
Sorry,
were
I'll
you
cut
gonna
you in.
say,
No, I was going to say, like, it definitely is, you know, a woman's, like, decision at the end of the day, but I feel like there's also the other issue of, like, say I was going to have a child, right? I know that society would not support me to do that because I'm in a wheelchair and I've got a disability, so there's also that side of it. And even if I didn't, even if I wanted to work and be independent, have my own house, be a single mum or whatever, and not have a man support me, there is zero support for
Yeah.
single mums.
Yeah.
in our society, and that is also really messed up.
Yeah, it's that other thing, like, if you don't like abortions, don't have an abortion. Like,
Yeah.
do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's that,
Yeah.
like, that, you know, like, you have to decide that, and if your moral compass can't agree with it, then, you know, don't have it.
Yeah.
But actually, that should be in the hands of the people. And I do understand what you're saying, like, the man can't decide, but, you know, if the man is involved, the father is involved, then there should be a conversation. But
Yeah.
but also, at the end of the day, the man can still leave and the woman still has to have the baby. So I think that
I think
makes
that'd be
it
the
more
fair.
complicated.
I think that'd be the fair
Yeah.
thing. Be able to think like, look, I'm a guy. I put that in your body as well. I feel like I want to be part of the decision, but understand it's your body. So
Yeah.
what can I really do about
Yeah.
it? Do you know
Apart
what I mean?
from
I just hate this idea that people always use that it's their body. It's not just their body, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's the body of a little child inside you.
But we'll never agree on that.
I know we
Yeah.
won't. There's always going to be people that will clash.
But what we can agree on is how to
Yeah.
prevent
Yeah.
like these
Yeah.
things.
I don't think the death penalty is ever acceptable, really. Like, never ever. Don't know what do you guys think?
Yeah, I would agree. I think that it's quite disheartening to think that anyone is beyond rehabilitation. I like to believe that everyone deserves to at least be alive to reflect. If they've done a crime, they should be alive to reflect on that crime as well. And I just think that killing someone takes things into a moral conversation that potentially doesn't have a, you know, who then decides what kind of crime then deserves death. Like, then you've got someone who's a gatekeeper to that decision, and that's a lot of power for someone to hold, I think.
And also that thing of, like, an eye for an eye. It's like, with that, like, everyone would end up blind, you know.
Yeah.
It's that thing, and also, like, if the state is killing, it's that relationship of, it's not a person killing another person, it's the actual state. So
Yeah.
I don't think that doesn't work for me.
I can sympathise with your views, but I just think that there's definitely there is certain circumstances where it would be the done thing. For example, if somebody has raped and killed your child or something like that, how could you ever look those parents in the eyes and tell them that their killer will live, that their child's killer will live forever?
Yeah.
To me, I think it would be fair for them to have the option to take that person's life just
Yeah.
as they took their child's life. Because when you really think about it, it's a horrible thing, but I think it is definitely justifiable, because you can't, I couldn't be the one to say to a mother or a father, this person's done that to your child, and now me as a judge, I'm going to let them live indefinitely,
Yeah.
even if it is just in prison.
So would you change that in our country at the moment? Because that's what happens in our country at the moment.
The reason the law was changed in this country was because a guy, you probably know, was wrongly convicted and then murdered. He was wrongly convicted of saying to one of his friends that they should shoot a police officer, and it turned out that wasn't actually the case, and his direction was not
Yeah,
to shoot
I
a
don't
police
know that story
officer.
at all.
Yeah,
No.
that was the movie Let Him Have It.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Derek Bentley. Yeah, you might. It's quite a famous movie. But so I think it would be a hard sell to the public to bring it back in this country,
Yeah.
and I think it would be unrealistic of me to say that
Yeah.
it should be brought back, because I don't think it ever will be.
No.
But do I think it's justifiable? For example, if it was up to me, I would happily see a convicted terrorist who went into the Manchester Arena and blew up and targeted children. To me, that crime is just unforgivable, and there's not really a punishment that fits that crime apart from death.
See, like, I kind of agree with you, but then you're creating a martyr and you're feeding into that ideology. I mean, in a historical context, we've had capital punishment before, and it evidently didn't work. And I think the danger is the legal system used, like, even for America, you know, the legal system then, so you know for a fact there'd be people on death would be like Muslims, you know what I mean, like the way the right-wing ideology, so it's just a danger, you know what I mean?
It's the state deciding.
It's the state, and that's a real danger to me, because I think when the state has other types of agendas against certain races and certain religions,
And class.
I sympathise with your views on the state having too much power. Absolutely. I think that the state that we have at the moment, I wouldn't trust them with a pack of chips, let alone the death penalty in this country.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
I do think it's a good question in terms of thinking about how we think about like moral rights and wrongs. When we're looking at crime, we have to look at like where people have come from and why people are so desperate.
There's no rehabilitation in the jails.
No.
There's no rehabilitation in the jails. When we're talking about like capital punishment, I think that when we look at the context of the way our legal system is, it's so out of touch that rehabilitation is still based on Victorian principles. Like our prison system is still based on that, and what we're shifting towards now is a privatisation. Like we're really lucky in Scotland. We're really lucky in Scotland that our prison service is still. And this is somebody who's been in jail, so like I still think that we're really lucky in Scotland the way our prison service is, because the privatisation, it means that like really what's happening now is that prisons don't have any form of education in them, right? The art classes, like the usual stuff gets cut. The same things that happen in the community, we're going to cut this. The musical instruments, we're going to cut the art, and it's the same as what's happening in prison. So essentially what it's meaning is people are spending 23 hours a day in a prison cell, and then as a media brand and exercise, they say we're going to stop smoking.
Oh my God.
Do you know what I mean? And what they've done is,
well, they've just given everybody e-cigarettes instead.
But also what they've done as well is like what you're saying, the common denominator with our prisons at the moment is trauma, childhood trauma, unidentified childhood trauma. So in Scotland, when you're reading the latest research on ACEs and stuff like that, and that goes for the murderers as well. Like, why are these people at 15-year-old, 17-year-old murdering? And you go, well, what have they been through in their childhood? None of this is taken into context. So our prisons at the moment, it's completely different for England, but our prisons in Scotland especially, we're really compounding the problem in the prisons, and the reduction of 12-month sentences and under as well, which is going to happen soon. The probation services aren't set up for it. So what we're going to be saying soon is anybody who's committing a crime at the moment, when you get 6 and 8 months, but it's costing us that much, so we're going to take away with the 12-month sentences, but we don't have alternatives in the community. So it's, do you know what I mean? There needs a reinvestment in actually what rehabilitation is, and community rehabilitation is based on Scandinavian models as well.
I've actually been in a high security prison once. I went for my dissertation project, and the guys that we interacted with and we were doing like a documentary, they had committed like obviously horrible crimes like rape and murder. Now I could have looked it up. I didn't look it up. Not before I went and not after, but when I was there, like they treated us with so much respect, and they were so, like they were just like, an ordinary person in society. So
They're just guys. Like they really are.
And it just made me think like everyone. I honestly think that we all have good and bad in us. I don't think someone is born a rapist or a murderer. So I think it is about, childhood trauma and abuse and that cycle of violence.
But also that leaves us with hope for rehabilitation, I think. Like if, crime usually does come from traumas, or what is the ACEs? Is it like
adverse childhood experiences, and there's indicators on it at the moment as well.
I think if you have 7, you're like more likely to commit like crimes or something like that. It's like something quite indicators, and actually like now we have that research. Then
we also need to be careful, because I get reflective practices once a month, so I kind of work around addiction and criminality a lot. But what also is happening is we have a thing called the Violent Offenders Watch. Yeah. Which is algorithms as well predicting future offenders. You know what I mean? So when you get caught up,
systems actually collaborating information.
Absolutely. But what that means is specifically working class kids, because like if you come for a scheme, 9 times out of 10 you're getting caught up in whatever, right? Yeah. So at the moment, for instance, right, if I was 14-year-old and I was with my friends and I committed a serious assault, if I had a social worker involved in my life at that time, that social worker then sends a report across to the police. Now, the social work department get money for that report going across, and this becomes part of the violent effect. This is the VOW project, which is the Violence Reduction Unit. I love what's happened with part of the Violence Reduction Unit, because they took the criminality, murder, and made it a health problem, which is brilliant. But then they've come in so far the other way as well, where they're determined to keep these numbers so low, but it just means that you're identifying future offenders at 14. Now, I get it, we have psychologists and psychiatrists, but we also know that these services are so stretched and under-resourced. As a country, we need to be investing, or at least examining why we're not doing this. Do you know what I mean? But we have the research in Scotland. It does also leave me with hope as well.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
I think our discussion was actually really well balanced.
It was thoroughly enjoyable.
We were quite respectful of each other.
I thought it was pish. I asked for avocado to be brought to me and there was no avocado brought, so to be honest with you, I'm not doing it again.